Tuning you in now to the LBX Show with your host, Brandon Wiley. Brought to you by the LBX Collective, your community to connect, engage, and inspire.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to a special edition of the LBX Show. This is episode number 75 for May 3rd, 2026. I'm your host, Brandon Wiley, and I am in Shanghai, China. Yes, believe it or not, I am in a hotel room in Shanghai, China. And you know what? It's been a great trip so far. We're going to get into that in just a little bit, but first we've got a packed show lined up for you today. We're going to dive right into some news you should know, and then we'll have a special edition road trip. And I'm going to cover some of the places I've visited while here in Shanghai and Nanjing. And then next up, we'll run an open and shut with Kevin Williams to review all the openings and closing trends from the last week. And then after that, Adam Pratt has returned. He's to Arcade Corner to cover some of the things that have happened at Evo Japan over the weekend and more. And then finally, Chuck DeMonte is also back with Promo Pro Tips. And this week he discusses the top 3 reasons why promotions at your FEC are failing. So with that, and without any further ado, we're going to dive into some news you should know. All right. So as I've talked about the last few weeks, we have season 5 coming up here in just a few months in August, and I'm taking suggestions. We want to change up the show a little bit, bring in some new segments, some new things, some new whatever, blah, 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 blah. And so we want to just change things up. So that being said, scan this QR code to submit your suggestions to, and we'll take whatever you want to put in. So yeah, go ahead and if you should say, hey, I never want to hear from you again, that's fine. We'll take that suggestion. Probably won't listen to it, but you can go ahead and put it in. That'd be just fine. All right, so that is season 5 suggestion box, and then we've got a new thing we're going to start covering here on News You Should Know on a weekly basis, and this is the Intercard lineup for 2026. So this is Intercard. This is all the different events where they're going to be at throughout the year. And this is a place where you can go and you can meet with them and their experts. And you can go and find out and know when they're going to be at these different shows, because there are a lot of shows happening. They're not at all of them, and so it's good to know when Intercard is going to be there. And so this is in the past, but they were just recently at Amusement 360. This is in Indianapolis, and that was over the 28th and 29th of April. That was just this last week. But coming up, they've got the RSA trade show, the Roller Skating Association trade show. They will be there from May 10th to the 14th in Las Vegas, Nevada. That is a fantastic trade show, a fantastic event. Absolutely adore everybody at the Roller Skating Association. And so if you haven't had a chance to go to that show, even if you're not a roller, you don't have a roller rink, you can still go there. And they always put on a great trade show. It's actually the 4th largest trade show of the year in our industry, especially from the amusement side. And so definitely highly recommend you check that out if you can. It's in Las Vegas. It's usually off the strip. And so I believe this year it is again off the strip. And so, yeah, go check that out. And then May 18th to the 20th, it's the Bowling Centers Association of Ohio. So they have different, the BPAA, the Bowling Proprietors Association of America, has different broken down different associations, and they have different typically association meetings, chapter meetings basically throughout the year. And so this is Ohio's. And then they are going to be at the MoMA, Minnesota Operators Show, from June 2nd to the 4th. So that is where you'll find Intercard over the next few weeks and month or so. And that is news you should know. Coming up next, we've got Road Trip, and I'm going to talk about all the really cool shit I have seen while here in Shanghai and Nanjing. All right, so not sure if that road trip intro ran properly. My computer is just overloaded. You've got a lot of things going on here, and I'm running off of the hotspot on my phone. So we are just going to keep rolling, and it's going to be what it is because I'm in Shanghai and I'm having a blast. So anyway, Came out here for a couple of different reasons, but ultimately it was a great time out here, meeting new people, spending some time with good friends like my friend William over at BAI, and he put together a great agenda while I was here, and ultimately got a chance to do a few things. So when I was in Nanjing, flew into there first, and got a chance to tour around the massive Cheer Amusement facility. They have 3 major warehouses. They manufacture everything in-house, for their soft play to trampolines to indoor inflatables, etc. They have just an amazing facility, and Jim was kind enough to take me around and just tour the whole facility, answer lots and lots of questions, and then even go to dinner, etc. So it's just a fantastic time at Cheer Amusement, and you could just see a couple of these pictures here of just some of their manufacturing facilities and some of the stuff they were doing, and then inside one of their warehouses, they were actually testing out one of their new go-kart track facilities that they're installing, and I had a chance to check out Arrowy's new karting system. This is Arrowy. If you're not familiar with them, they make high-speed go-karts, electric and gasoline. In fact, actually, they're the ones that supply the kiddie carts to the Andretti's, all the different Andretti karting and games locations. And this was it was a lot of fun to try out their new system. One, to just try out their carts, their high-speed carts, but then also to try out their new augmented version of the game. And so let's see here. This is just a picture of us at the at the karting facility at Cheer Amusement. But then I actually went to Arrowy's R&D facility and got a chance to try out their new system. It's basically a lot like playing Mario Kart, but in real life. This is a little bit different than battle carts or chaos carts, which I've talked about before on the show, because battle carts, chaos carts, those are they're not high-speed carts, so you don't need to wear a helmet when you're doing them. They are, it's much more of like a casual social thing. This is a system that you can install and overlay onto your existing high-speed karting course, so you don't have to have it always turned on, but this is like an added thing that you can turn on, so you don't need like a separate warehouse or whatever like you would with battle carts or chaos carts. It's not like heavy projection mapping everywhere. This is single, like a couple of different places where throughout the course where you have projection mapped items, and then you can pick those up, and you have a screen on your like right above the steering wheel on your cart, and then you have a couple of different buttons. One can shoot bombs, one can accelerate your speed if you've collected enough rockets, etc. And so anyway, they've done a great job. The gamification was fantastic. I had a blast, and so figured, I'm just going to show here a little bit of my time on the track, and you can this is their test track, obviously. So no, we're not wearing helmets, and there was 4 of us racing, and I took first every time, but it was whatever, that's fun. It's a lot of fun. But here we go. Okay, so that doesn't really be any sound, but they're experimenting with a couple different types of presentations. So if you see the little thing spinning there, that's actually one. I just picked up something. I just went over the top of it and did some light ups on my car. And then you can see in the back, it's got the different places, so you can see who's at what place when you're trailing behind them. And then, you can run over the top of, they have them projected on the ground. You can run over the top and it picks them up, but then also they do have them spinning up above, which is nice because you can see it far away, but then you can also see it right when you're close up to it, and you can run right over the top of it. So anyway, it's obviously a work in progress, but it was really enjoyable. And, I can see this being added to a lot of high-speed karting systems coming up here in the near future. So I really thank everybody in Nanjing for the tours and the time, and just absolutely enjoyed my time there. So thanks to Cheer Amusement and Arrowy for that time. All right. Now we've also got a couple of other places we visited. So then the next day took a train to Shanghai and visited BigX. So basically went right from the train to visit BigX, which is a massive trampoline and adventure park facility. Actually, I shouldn't even say trampolines. It's mostly adventure parks. It's a giant, like multi-level wraparound ropes course, bunch of aluminum slides. There are trampolines there, but there are a bunch of other things. So you can just see some of the pictures here. In fact, I'm going to make it a little bit larger so you can really focus on the pictures. So they've got this big tower, and you can actually jump out of that tower, and you're obviously connected to an auto belay, and so that drops you down. Multiple zip lines throughout the facility. They have live entertainment that happens throughout the time there on the weekends. They obviously don't do that during the week. But you can kind of just see some of the ropes courses, some of the things going on. Absolutely packed. You've got that thing where you're climbing up the poles and then jumping off as well. And they do have some digital games. So they have what they call their digital sports. Everything was very sports focused. So they had a number of things from Eunice here, some things that they developed themselves as well. But again, everything was tried to be heavily sports based. So if they did have anything digital, it was sports focused. I pulled this out here. This is their birthday party rooms. They had 3 birthday party rooms, and these are not like your typical birthday parties. These are generating anywhere from these are like several $100,000, excuse me, in for a birthday party. But obviously you can see the number of people here, but like it goes above and beyond. And then they even had, like, this is a girl's 10th birthday party. They even put the girl's picture printed on this stuff. So like these are really cool enhancements that I haven't seen done in too many birthday party rooms here in the US. Well, I say here, I'm still in Shanghai, but in the US. But I just thought they did a phenomenal job with some of this stuff. And so, they're doing a great job. And so anyway, I just really thank everybody at BigX for the tour and for bringing me in and for the fantastic lunch, etc. And then I visited their sister park. This is called Xbox. This is in another part of Shanghai. And you can see very similar, but there are some things that they learned from Xbox, which was their first location. They came and then went and opened up BigX, and they still have like the running letterboards and stuff with the digital letterboards, and then they've got the multi-level ropes course. They've got some trampolines and some foam pits, and but this was also a much more compressed space, so they didn't have the same amount of square footage or square meterage. And so anyway, but they had a good use of space here. And clearly, like, one of the things in talking with Mr. Pang is that they basically learn from each one, and they want each one to be slightly unique and have its own flavor, but still be obviously very sports focused and have a very similar color scheme. So thought that was really interesting. And then I went to one of the coolest places I've seen in a long time. Went to the Global Harbor Mall and visited Partyday. So this is the inside Partyday. I didn't so got a number of pictures we'll go through here. But this facility is just absolutely phenomenal. They have tons of attractions. Like they say, they have roughly 70 attractions, throughout their facility, and it's just unbelievable. So, they have. Let's see if I can come up with all of them. But anyway, they did have some Moment Factory, so we'll take a look at that here. But you can see here's the layout. So they have multiple zones and. Multiple different types of attractions here throughout this facility. And so, they've got ropes course as well. They do have some small bits of trampoline, but then a lot of it is all active play. So they really are trying to get kids up and active and doing different sports. Here is a floor by Moment Factory, their augmented games floor. And so there's had a constant line ready for everybody to go and do it. They had some racing sims, and I think one of the things I liked about this facility is, like, one, not only was the aesthetics like very well themed, very well done, but they also just had a really solid mix of attractions. And throughout the facility, it was very easy to navigate. So they had, in multiple places, they had digital boards, and you could click on you could tap on the different areas, and it would tell you what was available to play there. And it's just absolutely amazing. They call it the Super Carnival, and they just have like a large number of different types of games. They have the Mira game as well, in addition to that. And then one of the things that stood out to me about this place also, and this is, I think, this is key for me, because this is one of the things I think was a miss at so many of the places I did visit, was that they didn't have F&B inside. And part of the reason is because all of these places are malls. So in every single one of these places, like lifestyle, the life and leisure basically centers around the mall. And so right outside the door of super, Partyday Super Carnival are tons and tons and tons of restaurants and tons of places to go and get snacks and candy and everything else. And so I think that's part of the reason why a lot of these places don't offer F&B inside of their location. But I thought, this is really interesting because this was one of the only locations that I saw that actually had F&B inside. You could get beer, you could get wine, you could get sodas, you could get, snack food and other, pizzas and things like that. And so they did have food. And I thought that was a strong thing to drive that longer term stay, that dwell time that a lot of these other places just don't do. So they see a longer and higher dwell time as a result of having this F&B there. And they even report on those numbers on their site. So anyway, they've just done, I just felt like Partyday did a phenomenal job. I was really impressed with their facility, especially given the low ceiling height and everything else. And one of the things they've done too is create their own IP. They have their own characters. You can see them throughout the facility guiding you around. And they have this whole thing around party dancing and stuff too. And so their whole thing is the world needs happiness. We make happiness. That is their whole goal. And so that is I think it's like life, having a day, which is the party. So that's their whole thing. All right. So one of the other they did a number of things here. And inside the malls, like I mentioned, they have this whole idea of the fact that they're like basically the epicenter of their lifestyle and their leisure. And so there's each of these malls is like everywhere from 5 to 8 floors, and you're going to find cranes and gashapon and every mini variant, any mini form or variant of entertainment. And so some of the things you could find that I found were quite odd. This is probably one of the things that you that we'll never find or see in the US, which is a goldfish crane. And when I'm telling you like this is a crane for goldfish, there were multiple cranes picking up multiple goldfish. And these kids would have these little cups filled with water, and they'd have their tokens, and they were dropping their tokens in, and they were scooping up goldfish like they were hotcakes. Like, you want to talk about inventing the duck crane, and having the duck crane, like in every time you play the duck crane, it's a winner. Well, this was every time you stuck that little paddle down in, you basically scooped up a fish. And so for every token, you're picking up a goldfish, and whatever the hell these kids are going to do with the goldfish when they get them back home, and they've got like 17 goldfish in a little bucket. I don't know. The parents probably have to flush them down the toilet. But this was one of the strangest and oddest things I've ever seen in the amusement industry. If this is something that maybe I should have seen before now, then please tell me. But I was completely thrown off by this. And this was in the middle of a pet store. So yes, you could go and you could scoop up as many fish as you wanted. You could get some gashapon, and you could go home with a bunny rabbit. And you think I'm joking? I'm not joking. You could go home with a bunny rabbit or a cat or a little dog, and also like a bucket full of fish to, I guess, feed the bunny rabbit. I don't know. But anyway, so they had fish cranes, and then they had, every form of arcade that you could possibly imagine. And again, like what's really interesting is on each floor, there's multiple forms of entertainment. So there actually might be 2 or 3 arcades within a shopping mall, but that's because these things are so massive and there's so many floors that they effectively don't compete with each other. In most cases, you're going to find a situation where the mall is has like exclusivity restrictions, and so if you have an arcade in a mall, you're not going to have another arcade in that mall. That is not the case here. There were crane spaces and gashapon places and arcades within the same mall, and then right down the street is another mall with all the same shit. And so you've got 2 different types of arcades. You had cartoony and you had Star Legend, and in the arcades you've got your standard stuff that you would expect to find. You've got the MIDX, you've got the Takano Tatsujin, and you've got a bunch of other pachinko machines and everything else. There's your Taitsuna Tatsujin, and so then you have your mini kartings. So these are not obviously the full-size karting. These are like smaller carts and for smaller kids, but they had little mini pop-up karting facilities. These are 2 different karting facilities, same brand, but 2 different malls and mall locations that I visited. Then you've got your little mini trampoline park. So this trampoline park was right down the strip from BigX. And so I thought this was that was so strange to see this right down the basically the hallway from BigX, where they also have trampolines. And here's just a mini trampoline place. And the parents are sitting outside the facility eating their snacks and watching their kids run around and jump like crazy. This was probably the most unsettling, besides the goldfish crane, which was the kid pachinko machines. So if you're not familiar with pachinko machines, basically it's effectively what used to be gambling for adults. And so you shoot the little balls up, and if you get them into little holes or whatever, then you get more balls, and the balls basically equate to credits. So it's completely chance. There's no skill with pachinko, but this is there's a bunch of kids that are sitting there playing these. These are clearly definitely made for kids, and those balls can be redeemed for prizes. So a form of redemption to some extent. And one could argue whether there's big bass wheel and others are skill gamed, or whether they're chance games. And so I understand the fine line that we're walking in many cases when it comes to some of the games for redemption. So this is pachinko machines. And so I think what was cool is there's another one here. This one was empty. There's just one sad dude there on his thing at this particular mall. But then I even ran into Toys R Us. So they had Toys R Us there. And Jeffrey the giraffe was very prevalent, and everything else. But look, you know what? That was my trip to Shanghai. I go home tomorrow. Basically going to just spend some time walking around the downtown and the city center, and then fly home on my long trip back home. But it was a phenomenal visit. Very glad that I was able to make it out here, and appreciate everybody and all the hospitality that I've had while in this city and in this country. And that is Road Trip. Coming up next after the break, we will have Kevin Williams with Open It Shut. Intercard is the only cashless system designed, developed, and manufactured all under one roof. They introduced cashless technology to the amusement industry and have been leading the way for over 30 years. Cashless systems from Intercard increase customer spending, guest satisfaction, and boost revenues by up to 30%. Intercard is so proud to be serving the amusement industry, and if you aren't already part of their global family of customers, they hope you will become one soon.
Hey, a big hello to everyone to this latest Open and Shut. I hope I find you well, Brandon.
Doing well. Yeah, absolutely. We've got a totally wild, different scenario than last week.
Yes, from one extreme to the other. It's clear that either my bots weren't doing their work, or we had an artificial blip. Again, blips are difficult to chart. We would need to see what next week holds, and if it's to the same number. But it is clear that we're back to the 20s again of facilities opening in this glorious April period, jumping straight in. And we have the return of the Tourist of Pain, which has been updated under popular demand. And we've now, I'm going to try for the next couple of issues to populate it with the new openings in there, just so you can see the whole reason for the Taurus of Pain, of the demographic pattern of where people are focusing their entertainment experience on. So let's jump into the first of the facilities, and we'll touch upon this in sound off. But what we're seeing here is the redevelopment of an existing site. So our friends at Airhop acquired a number of Rush facilities, I'm led to believe. One in Birmingham. They've now put payment through. They've added a brand new amount of interactive entertainment or active entertainment to this, more than just being a trampoline and climbing wall facility. 35,000, quite large space. And they've dropped in our friends from VeloMotion, and they've dropped in the Soccer 360 system, and they've dropped in some Amusement, all in a nice package, adding to their 27 facilities.
Yeah, this is, I mean, they've done, I mean, from a rebranding standpoint and a relaunch standpoint, they've done a phenomenal job coming in
Yep.
and taking an existing facilities, really breathing new life into them. Again, not just refreshing the attractions, but refreshing the entire aesthetic, the paint, the graphics on the walls. It's really quite impressive. In fact, they've got a little thing here that I'll share on my screen where they've just got the stuff going on in the background here. And it's not like it's cut off a little bit, but there you can see rugged interactives, the footballer stuff that they've got. It's a great system from rugged. And obviously the UK being a great spot for that particular attraction. But yeah, I mean, they've done just an excellent job, and they've done it across the board to all of the locations. It's not just this particular Birmingham location. They've done it in Bristol, etc. So in all of their other locations. So again, great job with these guys. They really have breathed some new, fresh life into what they've got going on. You do see a few little random spots where Rush is still showing up in hashtags and other marketing components. So obviously they're not fully done with everything, but for the most part, they've done a pretty significant job here.
The leech, always a problem when you're taking over a brand and you have to rebrand something. The stuff that still sticks around, which takes a period of time for the analytics and the way that certain social media services work before it is transferred over.
Mm-hmm.
Japan has continued its upgrade and investment in the next generation. Our friends at Treasure Island have, they've got about 5 or 6 facilities out there. We've talked about them before as an emerging crane and amusement operation, a kind of Geigo and Gender competitor, but on a much far smaller scale. So we have the Mario City facility opening, and then we also have a brand new facility in Chiba. They're all really falling into the same kind of pattern here, which is clean, very well laid out from the point of view of the player looking for that merch, looking for those prizes from their particular crane machines. I would go a little bit further and say they're a little bit sterile. They are much more of a get in here, play, collect kind of go, but it is a platform that has worked for this operation, now up to 6 facilities, with also their parent companies' other investments in entertainment.
I'm glad you did use that term sterile. It's exactly the word that I was thinking in my mind, especially from obviously an aesthetic standpoint. It just looks like you're in a shop, like a grocery store facility. It just, fluorescent lighting down long hallways, all white, glistening. It looks very sterile. But look, I mean, I guess if you're like, depending on, these types of crane operations, you are effectively shopping. So you're walking around looking for the particular merch that you want, and you plop your, you tap your card or plop, money or whatever and your tokens into these to get your, to play your cranes or get your gashapon. And that's what it is, I guess. So it's like you're going to the supermarket, but for crane merchandise.
I was always hoping it was a little bit more than that, and the way that Gender approaches this kind of gave me the hope that you can make these a little bit more livable, a little bit more entertaining. We will have to wait and see what the longevity is, because when the bubble pops on the crane fiction that we are going through at the moment, then we will have to see how these sites survive, or whether there's a cunning plan in the back where you just hive out 20 of these machines and drop in some amusement. We will have to wait and see. An interesting historical story here with Cahoots. The Illinois facility here must be a crowded market in Rockford. They have taken over a previous Coca-Cola bottling plant. So we're seeing a historical building being utilized or reinterpreted now as an entertainment and hospitality facility. They've dropped in the duck pin bowling. There is amusement machines in there. There's a strong F&B component, and also a fantastic history of creating that brown bubbly liquid.
Yeah. I mean, It's a cool facility. I love that they took over an old bottling plant. It's going to give a really some fun vibes on the inside.
I hope so.
They've done a good job, at least with the few pictures that are available. To be clear, very few. They've done a good job in making everything, blending it all together. Like they've got the bowling alleys actually underneath the big drink Coca-Cola in bottle sign that's in there and stuff. And so some cool stuff on that front. But yeah, it's 50,000 square feet. It's a lot of space for mini golf and duck pin bowling and some arcades. And F&B, that's just a lot of space to fill.
And the themality did pay for that. They've had to stretch thin that because there's only so much you can do. I'm sure this is a labor of love where once they get some more time under their elbows, they'll be able to apply a much more vigorous theming system at the moment. Kahoot is a great name. I'm looking forward to trying their Kahoot root beer, which I'm sure they're going to have to bottle when the facility is in full swing.
I will bring up one thing. Now, I don't know that Coca-Cola gives too many shits about trademark infringement or anything like this from a little facility, well, not a little facility, a big facility but in one of their own former bottling plants. But the font that they've used for their logo is exactly the Coca-Cola font. So they have leveraged the original, the C and the O's, and it is exactly Coca-Cola's font.
It's close as one that's
it's about as close as you can possibly get.
It's close as one that's had to look very closely at the Pepsi and Coca-Cola font management. Their C is a little bit more compressed, if you will, but I give it to you there.
Yeah, see, I was just looking because these two happen to be like right underneath each other. Yeah. So anyway, not that it matters, but it is a little bit of a stretch. It's I get it. I like the obviously it's an iconic font. It works really well with the bottle cap logo behind, but it is a little bit of a stretch.
I think they should have made it more their own, personal opinion. But again, at least it isn't bright red.
Yes, indeed.
Moving on, and even more of the virtual adventure experiences are opening now. And again, in Tokyo, we have, I think this is an established facility that has now pivoted fully over to the Excurio platform and is offering the latest of their experiences. The Secret of the Pyramids Builders is a very popular experience. They've seen a lot of success and awards for that. Again, multiple individuals, up to about 100, migrating through the space on a linear path, which is invisible to people looking, but is visible to those within the virtual environment. Not a game per se, but an adventure or an experience. So offering that lovely museum and large audience capability.
I think the one thing that is useful here is the linear path for their experiences. And that allows them to be able to have guests start in sequence, and they're not having to start in very specific booked time blocks. I mean, they are booked time blocks, but they can start in every 10 minutes, etc. And you're just bringing people through, and it's a conveyor belt of guests. And I think that's one advantage to the linear version versus something that's a little bit more like if we talk about versus immersive, where you're wandering and you could be anywhere at any time, and so then depending on depending on the number of people that you have, you could be in each other's way or etc. But this allows for that linear path, and then again, you don't have to manage guests, the number of guests in your facility, because they're really just flowing in and out like you do almost in a typical museum.
Yes. The nice thing about these current systems, and we have Universes systems, we have Excurios, we have some other platforms. They're now becoming much more sophisticated in the packaging of the audience groups. As you said, you can kind of have them like buses or coaches lined up in groups to pass through. You can also have different experiences running. So one group is looking at the the painters of Paris, while the others are looking at the inside of the pyramids. And, it's a digital experience that only they can see. These are all of the aspects that make virtual adventure systems, as well as them being large audience, attractive. They also have flexibility. But we'll be hearing a lot more about this kind of approach as more companies enter the market. Again, sticking with Japan and Tokyo, I was lucky enough to have a chat with the development team behind this particular system. They are well known in developing VR experiences for the Japanese audience. And this latest one, Animal Look, is one of those adventure experiences with what I would call an edutainment bent to it. It is a mixture both of a seated motion seat experience as well as a free roaming walk around experience, but not to the same large groups as we were seeing previously. But again, this is fitting into a resort museum environment, and we're still understanding how permanent this is going to be, because again, it is there for a set period of time, but if it is popular, it may stay a little longer.
I think these are the types of additions to resorts that are really, they're great. And this is the perfect thing to put into a resort. Definitely not a
standalone ships, resorts, museums. This is a level of flexibility and edutainment that many operators can get around.
Yes, exactly.
Again, staying with Japan, and if it isn't already obvious, the Japanese love affair with XR and especially VR is still very strong at the moment. We have a new facility opening up. From my point of view, it is a VR arcade. It has the free roaming experience. It also has the more standard kind of VR game experience, but it's in a package. Luby Land is something that the operators feel is going to be very popular, and it is associated with NTT Communications, the broadcasters out there, who've established a relationship with HTC, the headset manufacturers.
Yeah, I mean, another VR arcade,
another one,
I guess. Yeah.
Again, we will use the measuring stick to see, is this an establishment for the Japanese market, or is it just that the Japanese market may be 24 months behind the Western market, which is now seeing a transition in its deployment of the standard VR arcade against the virtual adventure approach.
Yeah.
Again, we'll go into this in sound off, but here is the swings and roundabouts, as it were, of the market. We've seen one of the largest of the VR arcades in the Tokyo area actually close. And it wasn't just closing at a particular location. It had a number of attractions that were still popular, even though the overall entertainment experience was suffering financially. And so what we're seeing is one of those experiences, the boat racing VR arena, being pulled physically out of this failed facility and being given its own standalone. I have umbrage with this. This isn't VR. This is looking at a large screen sitting in a motion base in a boat racing experience. I am led to believe there is a VR version of this, but you can either play the screen version or the VR version, but I haven't been able to get that much information out.
I have the same beef with the naming convention. I think we need to stick with VR. That is VR that we know, right? The encapsulating headset that goes over and really gives you a virtual view of the world, and not just something that happens to have a screen and a motion seat. That is not virtual reality. So yes, I do have the same beef. And, it also may have contributed to some of their issues. When you promote something as VR and it isn't VR, then the guest experience, we talk about the disjointed guest experience, and that may have been part of the issue. Obviously, we'll dig into it further in sound off, but that certainly is something that stands out to me.
Agreed. Maybe they should have dropped the VR and gone with Metaverse. A different type of addition to our openings. This is a traveling pop-up experience, which leans very heavily on kind of what we saw in Vegas with the John Wick's kind of experience, or what we've seen in London with the Monopoly life-size approach, which is toy manufacturer has popular toy brand, Cluedo. They have merged that into a live action or actor-based with some level of interactivity kind of pop-up experience that can be dropped into stately homes or hotels or whatever under the Cluedo name. Will we see a lot more of this kind of approach, or is this just something to allow the Hasbro Experience team to push their brand into a new direction? We'll need to wait and see.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to dig into it further on Sound Off, but this is in collaboration with Broadway Murder Mysteries, so they're already a group of a troupe, so to speak, that has that puts on these different types of murder mysteries. So curious, wonder whether Broadway Murder Mysteries approached Hasbro for the opportunity in the IP, or vice versa. Hasbro wanted to get their brand out there and approached Broadway Murder Mysteries group to do that.
Be interesting to find out who approached whom.
Mm-hmm.
We have another unusual one in the openings here, but it is IP based, and again, we'll go into a little bit more depth of its importance. But our friends at Square Enix, the video game publisher, with a large number of very popular Japanese and Western IP under their brand, who also own Taito. And they have entered or thrown their hat into the ring of opening up coffee or cafe shops. And this kind of falls into the Bandai Namco cross-store kind of approach, but rather than focused on the store side, it is focused on the cafe approach first, with the themed cakes and the drinks, as well as the merch and the viewing experience here. An interesting addition to the transmedia mix, and I would say it fits kind of on our Taurus of Pain, as it is an IP as a retail site.
This is interesting that they went full on cafe to promote. Or to, I guess we have promote the transmedia IP of Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, etc. They're all part of the Square Enix, the video game publisher group. Dragon Quest and obviously Final Fantasy being the most popular versions of most well-known brands that they have. And so just very surprising though that they went with the cafe path versus something maybe a little bit more on the nose.
They've done a number of pop-ups, which we'll touch upon later. And that kind of gives us the rundown of the big openings worthy of pitching. Now, we talked about it's unusual for them to do the kind of the cafe store approach, because it kind of difficult to nail down. And here is an example of how difficult it can be to nail down when you create an Angry Birds cafe. Again, based upon the IP, with a toy store or merch store attached to your cafe. You throw the doors open in 2023. You have a partnership with a well-known cafe operator, and 2026 you're closing the doors and putting it in the bin. So again, I'm sure our friends at Square Enix are looking very closely at this to see that they may need to change their coffee beans to suit the audience. In the Western market, the thing about the Square Enix facilities is opening up both in America and Japan, and I think they'll find a lot more success with the Japanese version.
I would totally agree. I think the one thing that one comment, and again, I know we'll we're obviously getting into like IP and transmedia discussion and sound off here, but look, I mean, I think part of this, frankly, comes down to the fact that the Angry Birds franchise is tired. That IP is fucking everywhere. And I think that somebody, can only go to an Angry Birds cafe so many times before, they're burnt out.
Once may be too much for me, but the issue with IP burnout is a thing, as we all know, and also it is the job of the intellectual property management team and their agents to make sure that they don't overdo the deployment of their IP and that they have clear demarcation. And with another Angry Birds film in the mix, the burnout of the IP in the transmedia sector can have direct ramifications for game releases as well as new movie releases. I think Sega and Rovio are in a interesting point regarding where Angry Birds fits into the transmedia mix. I know they've just won some awards for the Angry Birds licensing, but sometimes boom is followed by bust. Going back to what we were talking about previously, the iconic Tokyo Tower in the center of the city had opened back in 2022, 2023. The red Tokyo Tower, which was over 4 floors, multiple XR entertainment and esports, and it never found its feet. It's been going through various transitions, various products have been parachuted into this multi-entertainment space. This is a perfect example of not understanding what mixed-use leisure entertainment is. Fantastic themality, fantastic design, very poor entertainment choices were made. We will go into more detail regarding that. But then we get the usual, back in March, we get told, oh, we're closing for redevelopment. And then as we come to the end of April, we now learn that no, this is a permanent closure and that, they're going to strip the space and salvage what they can.
Yeah. Again, I know we're going to talk more about this in Sound Off. I just think that we've seen multi-level facilities like this really struggle. And I don't know if at some level it's the format, it's the layout, it's the fact that you have these different levels that are not a unified overall experience. But this is not the first multi-level type of mixed use leisure entertainment, mule facility that we've seen struggle and close.
I'm a big fan of mules, and sadly, the ones that we have out in the market at the moment don't actually fulfill what the definition of a mule is. They haven't got the entertainment mix down right. And I'm sitting on an embargo at the moment of another mule in our sector that had a strong VR following that is also equally in trouble time and maybe pulling the plug. So again, we're at a transition point where hopefully the next generation of mixed-use leisure entertainment facilities learn their lessons and can create a package that is suitable for the market. Again, it's a difficult one to work out here whether it was stymied by COVID and could never redefine itself. But Switzerland's first indoor attraction, an amusement park, opened back in 2020, suffered all the privations, but carried on. Had about an investment of 15 million Swiss francs into it. But now mounting debt and difficulties with the landlord means that they're going to have to pull the plug. It's a shame because I feel very strongly that the Swiss audience could take to this entertainment, though looking at what entertainment was on offer, I think the operators may have positioned this in the wrong direction for a very sophisticated market.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with that. I mean, being all indoors obviously is impressive to have these types of attractions in there, full scale roller coasters, etc. But it, there was not enough, I think, themality, etc., to really tie together what they were trying to do with both the brand and the development of their IP and everything else to make it work.
Yeah, needed more time in the oven, and I think maybe have some people from the amusement sector rather than the design sector helping lead that. But again, I'm sure the post-mortem will be done at some point. That's it from me at the moment. LinkedIn contacts as always. We have some new entertainment social arenas hitting very soon. We've also had some new Stinger reports out there. And if you have any information you'd like to pass on, my email is there as well.
Perfect. All right. Well, another great open and shut, Kevin, and we will see you on the next one.
Have a good one.
If you run a location-based entertainment brand and want to attract more visitors, check out Radius. They use real-time location data and customized marketing strategies to help brands like yours stand out. Radius can boost your foot traffic and build a loyal customer base. Plus, they're offering a complimentary local market analysis to show you exactly how they can help you grow. Curious? Visit radius.co and ask about your free market analysis. That's RAYDIUS.co.
All right. Well, that was a great open shut with Kevin Williams. And coming up right next, we've got Arcade Corner with Adam Pratt. Let's get into it.
Hey everybody, hope you're having a great May so far, or a great start to your May. This is Adam Pratt with Arcade Heroes for the Arcade Corner at the LBX Collective. And April was a little bit slow on news, but there still have been things going on, although most of what I'll be talking about is from this weekend, as there's been an event over in Japan called EVO Japan 2026. I'll get into that in a moment, but before we get there, for the things that did happen in April, there was the release of Silver Strike League Night from Incredible Technologies, which is the official sequel to their Silver Strike Live, or they also called it Silver Strike X, I think, for the offline version. Bowling arcade game, and this brings it into the world of 4K with nicer graphics, more realistic physics. They worked with a company that I believe is out of Utah that does bowling products. I can't remember their name off the top of my head, though. Not into bowling that deep and everything. But either way, this game showed up at IAPA 2025. It was at Amusement Expo 2026, and yeah, if you're into bowling, then it's a great game to have. And then let's say you're not a bowling alley or you're not operating in a bowling alley, then this is one way to bring bowling to the arcade without having to install expensive and space consuming lanes. And so that is available now, and it's also one of the more affordable games on the market too. The price range is way below $10,000, as I recall. It's somewhere in the $4,000 to $5,000 range, and it's that's almost unheard of these days. And so it's really nice to see a game coming along. I wouldn't mind it if Incredible Technologies would make more games that aren't Silver Strike or Golden Tee, something else that also falls into that same sort of pricing category. That would be nice, especially for us smaller operators like myself. Now, another piece of news that hit is that I don't cover coin pushers all that much. I mean, they're really borderline as far as games go, just because there are some skill elements there, but they're not pure skill on all that. And so I just don't pay a lot of attention to things like that nature, but can't deny the fact that they are ridiculously popular. They make a ton of money. And so Sega, which is not really well known for their coin pushers, at least in the West, I know there's these things called metal games over in Japan, but I honestly don't know how deep Sega is into those. It's usually Konami and some other companies that seem to fall into those lines. But regardless, there is a Sonic the Hedgehog coin pusher on test here in the United States with Sonic Balloon Carnival, which also vends cards. And so it's using that popularized idea that ELOT has done. And allows you to collect cards that are from the Sonic the Hedgehog universe. This year is the 35th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog. Technically, for worthless trivia purposes, he appeared in an arcade game first in Rad Racer, but it was just a little physics-based thing hanging from like a toy hanging from the rear view mirror. It was a driving game otherwise, but that actually was released before Sonic the Hedgehog was released on the Sega Genesis. Again, if you're ever on Jeopardy and that somehow comes up, which I kind of doubt it will, there you go. But the big news this week has been about fighting games, stuff like Street Fighter or Tekken, and so on. As I mentioned previously, there is an event taking place over in Japan called EVO Japan. Now, EVO itself started here in the United States back in 1996, I think it was, 95 or 96, somewhere around there. And it was just an event put together to celebrate fighting games and to compete on them. People could win cash prizes for being in those tournaments. And over the years, as the fighter declined in the arcade scene, it gained plenty of support on the home gaming side of things. And of course, like Mortal Kombat, ever since Mortal Kombat 4, it's never appeared in arcades again. It's always been a console game. Street Fighter 4 and 5 and 6 all started more on the, well, I think maybe Street Fighter 4 might have started off as an arcade game, but its time at the arcades as an exclusive was very, very short. I mean, thinking about it now, I had Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition for a month and a half until they released that version on consoles, and then it completely died. But I just can't remember the specifics as to which versions came out when. But regardless, just Street Fighter's gained more popularity on consoles in recent years. Soul Calibur 4, 5, and 6 never appeared in the arcade, and so on. And but the fighting scene, or FGC is how they often call it, the fighting game community, has kept things alive, and quite an interesting scene that goes on there. But of course, the problem is when a lot of these games that originally started off as arcade games, like the whole one-on-one fighting genre, started in the arcade, and so it was designed with the needs of what makes an arcade game work, and those change when you go into a console where you can spend all the time in the world that you want because you're sitting on your couch and there's your quarter's not on the line or anything like that. Like, there are differences in game design, and that's affected how a lot of these fighting games end up being. And so oftentimes they try to maintain the veneer of being an arcade game, but at the same time they lose some of that. And I've seen criticisms with certain games. I think particularly Street Fighter 5 seemed to get a lot of that criticism, where it just was straying too far away from the formula that worked in the arcade. But that the problem is the arcade formula doesn't always feel very satisfying when it's at home. Regardless, fighters have been making a comeback in arcades in recent years, thanks to one company that we've mentioned before called X Arcadia. If you've not heard of them, long story short is they're essentially like the old SNK Neo Geo MBS, where they have a platform that allows you to swap games out via cartridges, very affordable, and they're also based out of Japan. And with that, they work with a lot of developers, both in the West and the East, to bring those games to their platform. And oftentimes they will make some changes, generally improvements as far as the graphics and the what's called input lag, like the time that it takes for your character to do something on the screen from when you pushed a button or moved the joystick. For most people, they don't really notice that, but fighting game fans, they really do. And so like Exa games play a lot faster, or a lot more responsive than the games are on consoles. But regardless, Exa, they have they've sold thousands of games all over the world. They're available here in the United States. I have 3 of their cabinets. I have multiple games. theirs, and they also are pretty big in Japan, but they use this Evo Japan event to announce a lot of games. And they've been doing this for the past few years. But this year, I'm not really sure why they haven't given a lot of details. It's more just been announcing the games themselves. Although there was a lot of traction out of this one that's been hanging out on my screen here, where SNK announced that King of Fighters 98 would be returning to arcades on X Arcadia. Now, as an arcade operator since 2008, I learned very early on that King of Fighters was a very popular game with the Latino community. And so where my arcade's located, it has a fairly high demographic of Latinos. And so I got requests for it very early on, grabbed it, and it's actually been, it's paid for itself many times over, just because it wasn't very expensive to grab. It was like $40 for the cartridge. Can't remember how much I paid for the cabinet, maybe like $400 or something like that. But still, just King of Fighters alone, and particularly the 98 game, is one that a lot of people like. There have been some different versions of it released over the years, and this is the first time it's coming back to arcades in quite a while. I think in almost 20 years. And so, because there was a version released in 2008, but it was restricted more to Japan and to consoles. But it hasn't been announced what details there are to it. We, again, just unfortunately with a lot of the X's stuff, which they are very active on X, as there's Japanese social media. Most users in Japan that use social media use X, formerly known as Twitter. And so X, like most of their social media is not in English, it's in Japanese. And so they promote that. And so there's been quite a few announcements of these new games that they have here. Right here is their booth at Evo Japan being set up. Here's a photo of King of Fighters 98 over at the SNK booth being played. But from what I can tell, this looks like a very early version where it's probably just the MVS version running on their hardware without many other changes to it at this point. Because usually when Exa takes these games from the 90s, which were done in a 4:3 aspect ratio, and then put them on a modern 16:9 aspect ratio monitor, they will fill in those blanks, those black spots on the sides with artwork or with the move sets, which show you how to pull off a certain move with a joystick and button combo. This right here shows that this is something they've done just for a particular company. Unfortunately, I can't remember the details on this, but 2XKO, this was just done for that company there with their fighting game, and it's not been made available, widely available, I should say. Here's another game that I wasn't familiar with it. I believe it's available on Steam. I'm going to go Golden Fantasia Cross Exceed. And so unfortunately, with all of these fighting games that I'm going to bring up, other than the King of Fighters, I've never played them. I don't know much about them. Just that it seems like they're all available on Steam or on some sort of PC build. Like this one right here. This one, I don't think it was available on Steam. It was just an older PC game that never got a lot of traction, a bit obscure. And so it looks like they're bringing this. It's Rising Eclipse, if you can't read that, because that text is very difficult to read. But Rising Eclipse will be coming to arcades. And again, these are not just for Japan. These are going to be available worldwide. So like if myself wants to get one of these games here in Utah, like I definitely will be grabbing the King of Fighters 98 when that becomes available. Then you can. Another one is Them's Fightin' Herds, which started off as a My Little Pony fan game, and it turned into its own thing. And this was made available on different consoles a few years back. And you fight as different animals. It's not just horses or ponies, though. It has other characters in it, too. And so they changed it enough so that it wouldn't violate any sort of copyright or licensing with My Little Pony. and such. But then another one announced was Neo Double Dragon. And so most people, when they think of Double Dragon, they think of the beat 'em up that existed in 1987, and there was Double Dragon 2 and Double Dragon 3, and there was also the Double Dragon that was pretty popular on NES, which had some changes. But in 1995, they actually did a one-on-one fighting game based on the obscure, fairly bad 1994 movie of Double Dragon, and so that's going to be making a comeback. And then they also announced this Diesel Legacy, the Brazen Age, another 2D fighting game, although I see 4 different characters on there, so I guess like a tag team sort of thing. But again, I unfortunately don't know a whole lot about those particular games one by one. But either way, lots of new fighting games coming to the scene. There will be more than this headed our way at some point, but unfortunately just very few details were announced on these other than the names, really, and that they were available to play in Japan. And that we will see them before too long. One of the games that they had at Amusement Expo 2026, the Avatar Legends fighting game, which is based on Avatar The Last Airbender anime, that is releasing very soon. It just started testing over in Japan, and so they'll be seeing that. So again, if you have an arcade or an arcade that is into fighting games or has people around, customers that would be into those sorts of games, then there's a bit of a revival going on. So I guess it's just pick which one you want, or you can have up to 4 in one machine. But that's all the time we have for now. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next video.
All right. Thanks, Adam, for a great arcade corner. And right now we've got Chuck DeMonte with promo pro tips.
Hello and welcome to Promo Pro Tips with Chuck DeMonte. That is me. And today I want to discuss the top 3 reasons that your promotions at your local FEC are failing. Okay. So, we constantly are talking to clients or trying to help them run promotions and discuss about previous promotions they ran and what they've tested and what they've done. And there's 3 things that really stand out when people run promotions and the either success or the failure of them. Okay. And so those 3 things are, number 1, not planning them out. Okay. Plain and simple. Most people are reactive, right? As opposed to proactive, meaning let's plan out for the year. If we can plan out for the 3 months, 6 months, whatever it looks like, right? Plan out as far in advance as you feel comfortable with or that you can, right? I know things change, budget changes, things change, maybe you're trying to do some trendy stuff that, based on, more current events or something like that, right? Pop culture stuff. That's great, right? But give yourself time to plan out and think it through, right? That means when are you doing it? What times are you doing it? How do you get the word out, right? If you try and promote it in a week, yeah, of course it's not going to do well, right? It didn't get in front of anybody, okay? So first and foremost, you need to be planning them out and plan out every aspect, right? How are you going to measure success? How are you going to promote it? Who are you going to get in front of? Have you seen other people do it? Like really try and plan it out, okay? And again, the more you give yourself time to do this, the higher likelihood you have of a promo succeeding, okay? So first and foremost, plan it out, okay? Number 2, put enough time, effort, budget, money, resources to it, right? Really give it a fair shake, okay? Don't, do it 50% of the way. If you're not doing it 100% aggressively, do not do it, right? You need to do a promo properly, right? And again, when you think about planning out or doing it properly, like the thing that comes top of mind is like in-store signage, right? Make sure you're getting it wherever you can. Have in-store signage, plan it out, tell people when they're leaving out, make sure your staff knows it's happening so they can tell people, like cover every angle, have enough budget to promote it, right? Know how you are going to measure if it's successful and conversions and all that stuff, right? So first and foremost, make sure you're planning them out, and then make sure you have enough resources to market it, okay? And a lot of times that comes down to budget as well, but also print and, just again, make sure you have enough sort of marketing behind it, right? So that's important. Plan it out. Make sure you have enough marketing behind it, right? You can't tell one person to put $10 boost on Facebook and expect the event to do well, okay? Last but not least, people too often try one time for an event. It didn't make them $1 million, so they give up on it, okay? That's not how this works. That's not how marketing works. That's not how business works, right? Many of you are smart business operators, right? You know, trial and error is what it took to you to run your business and what you've learned. Like, think about how much you've learned and you know about your business that you didn't know when you first started, right? Or anything for that matter, friggin' life, right? So, you know, don't do something once and it didn't make you $10 million. So you don't do it again, right? Try it a different way, try a different version, try a different way to get it out there, right? Maybe the promo, what it was, just people didn't react to it. Maybe you didn't get enough people in front of it, right? Maybe it is good promotion, but you didn't get it in front of enough people, right? So there's countless reasons why something can't work. Don't try once and never again, right? You have to put your expectations in, grounded in reality, what's possible, right? And what's not. So, you really need to understand, again, going back to how am I going to measure success? What do I expect out of this one, right? So again, when people are trying promos, we often see people, try one time and it doesn't work, right? So, don't do that, right? Recap, plan them out, right? Plan out your promos, plan them out properly, every angle that you could possibly think of, okay? Make sure you have enough marketing resources behind it, from budget to strategy, okay? And then make sure you're not just trying one time and giving up. Try a bunch of different promotions, right? But also don't do 8 promotions at once. That kind of goes back to the budget and the resource thing. Don't do 8 different promotions. It confuses people. Do one thing at a time. You want to do 50% off. You want to do a BOGO. You want to do an event, whatever. Do one thing at a time. And again, that all goes together, because if you do one thing, you will have the time to plan it. You will have the budget and the resources to execute it properly, okay? And you'll even, be able to understand if it works better, right? And you'll be able to gauge the success of it better, okay? So get to it, work on promotions, don't give up, right? Have a budget, and don't get discouraged when it doesn't work on the first time.
All right. Well, thanks, Chuck, for those great tips. And you know what? We've got Sound Off with Kevin Williams. It's number 120, episode number 120 on Tuesday, May 5th. So just coming up in 2 days, Cinco de Mayo, right after May the 4th be with you. And so we've got a couple of great fun days coming up here in the next few days. But that is a wrap for this week's LBX show. This is Brandon Wiley signing off. Stay tuned and keep kicking ass.